Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Irrational Passions review discussion. This won't play for audio people, but we're here in our tunics. Me and Alex O'Neill. Gosh, words. It's hard to describe this video game, just like it's hard to use words. Alex O'Neill. That's what I'm going for.
Agreed, Mike. I am fully with you.
Yeah, we're talking about Tunic. The game we both played a lot of. I kind of played it in a weekend blur, but we both played through all of it, and it's a pretty awesome video game, and we wanted to talk about it some more here in this review discussion, just to give everybody a basic setup for the game. Tunic is kind of like a solo project, at least it started as one, and is on Xbox, and has been going, like, I feel like it got revealed in like 2017 and like has just kind of been this game of like, well, will it come out? When is it coming out? It looks cool. It's shown up at a lot of like pressers and little smaller events. I remember we both played it at PAX.
It 3 times. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I played it at a PAX as well, like in 2019. So now it's here finally. And we played through all of it, and it's a really special game. It's very Zelda inspired, like down to a lot of elements of. It's called Tunic, and you're a little fox in a green tunic, and it's done and it's designed in a way that's like very vague about instructions. I'm telling you what to do and how to kind of play the game in a very interesting way that kind of is all about you as a player trying to figure out how to navigate the world, find secrets, like what your kind of main objectives are. It's a really awesome way to kind of piece all that stuff together. And I think the way they do that, of piecing all that stuff together, is by using an actual in-game like manual book that you're like unlocking as you go through.
Yeah, like as a collectible. They remind me kind of like not one-to-one, but conceptually similar to like the pages in Alan Wake, of like they feel like an essential part of the story, even though at first maybe they seem like more kind of gimmicky, like, oh, this is fun, as it goes on, like those manuscript pages in Alan Wake I feel like are like really flesh out the kind of wild meta-ness of the game, and in a similar way Tunic's instruction manual does as well. And it's just like I love, and I feel like you're probably in the same boat, I love old video game instruction manuals so much.
Yeah.
And like it's so crazy how this game like almost preys on that nostalgia of like incorporating it into the actual game. Like I know this feels like a weird thing to talk about first. I feel like if you've not played Tunic, it's like this, like it seems weird that they would focus on this as much, but like it is like almost a character in the game, the instruction manual, like to like give it, trying to give it like the nuance and like gravitas that it serves in the game, that it deserves. Like, the first one you get is like telling you, like, in, very true to form instruction manual, like what frames of invincibility like the dodge roll that you has. It's like, if you see dust, you're okay. No dust, not okay. Like, and it's like, oh, this is like just truly a cute instruction manual, but it like serves like this one level of actually teaching you mechanics about the game. Like, this is like the actual tutorial in a meta level of like, oh yeah, like this is how video games used to be. But this is in the game, and then it like has a metatextual context to the game as well, of like, of course you're collecting it in the world and it exists in the world, and so it's important to the world, and that just alone is like so cool and unique, and like it makes you excited, because in a similar way to Death's Door, a game that came out last year, there are ways you can interact with the world from the get-go that you just do not know yet. And the instruction manual, as it would in a video game that came out like on the NES, for example, like it feels like those are the types of games that would like you got to check the instruction manual. I don't know if you want to know what the hell's going on in A Link to the Past, but you got to look at the instruction manual first. Like that's a perfect example, because that instruction manual tells you about the fire rod, which is an item that you would just not get if you didn't. You know, you need it to beat a boss in that game, but you don't know it exists.
Doesn't tell you.
Yeah, and it doesn't tell you that. So it's like harkens to that, while also like kind of creating its own identity as a modern video game. It's very, very interesting.
Yeah, and I think like the best way is like you were kind of talked about a little bit, was like there's like a layer upon layer upon layer on like how it teaches you aspects of the game. Of like it starts pretty simple, of like here's like, you know, what your movement is, and like you said, dodging and using stamina, and here's like your health points. But then there's like another layer of like it teaching you like the like story of like how the world is, and like why the world is the way it is, and it kind of gives you like stuff about that, of like, oh, these pieces you're after, and like, you know, it's very Zelda inspired. Like this is basically like the Triforce for this universe, and this faction of people were like praying to it, and like it's like all powerful, and that kind of led to all these other things. And then it kind of teaches you like even deeper mechanics of like, you know, hey, you get these little cards, and then, you know, I like how it does it, because it's like they have a lot of the pages themselves like don't necessarily just give you the answer directly. Some of it like there's its own language to this world. And like how they kind of actually give you some of the information is like there'll be like little scribbles and like written in like pencil on some of these items of like, hey, this little card will give you like better health or faster like stamina regen or something. And like some of those things are like kind of like get filled in as you like interact with stuff, which I thought was really cool as well. And then
like if you're going through there are maps in the instruction manual, which I really like, because you actually show up on each of the maps, and they're not all like the same format of map, which is cool. Like sometimes it's just like a very kind of classic world map, like a Zelda style world map, but other times it's like a D&D grid.
You know, or like a multi-layer or like sort of 3D-esque dungeon.
Yeah, like a classic strategy guide from the N64 era type deal. It's
really cool.
And you always show up like where your location is, shows up on the map, and like there's one where like you have to go through like a maze of like spike floors in a dark area, and like as you go through it, the character presumably draws on that map the line that you have to go through the maze. It's like, oh, that's like a really nice touch. And it like again harkens to that era of like writing notes in the notes margin at the end, right? Like, oh yeah, this is how you kind of like, I remember having 15 pages of notes with my mom playing Myst back in the day. It's like, yeah, this is how you played video games.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's like really interesting too, that like as important and like integral this like kind of manual becomes, for me personally playing through it, like I didn't really use it super in depth until like till most of like the quote unquote like main kind of collections, going to like the big 3 dungeons, essentially, like until that up to that point, like I was just using that, like you said, like that there's maps in there in the pages, just because like that's how the game is kind of structured in terms of like you kind of get like a couple pages. I don't think you find a couple pages pretty quickly out of the gate, and they kind of give you, like you said, that very basic information, and they give you an overworld map. But like other than that, you're just kind of left to your own devices to kind of explore, and you can figure out a lot of the stuff on your own. Like that's kind of what I did, where it's just like it gives you that very base level of like, hey, you got to go collect these 3 things, and it's presumably you're saving somebody, or this other older fox lady character that they introduced to you early on. And so like I like from there, it's like I just kind of took that as like, okay, yeah, of course, Zelda, got it. Like it's, you know, it's Tunic, it makes sense. And so I started just kind of like not really looking at it super deeply, just kind of playing it because I thought it would be a game. Because I thought in a lot of ways it would be a game where you can just start learning stuff as you do it. And in some parts you can, like, you know, a lot of
it is
the basic, like, you know, gameplay, you know, doing puzzles in the environments, and like there are like these dungeon-esque zones that you go to, which are all very like different and interesting. Like, there's like, usual stuff like a big like kind of forest ruiny zone. And then there's like, this, you get into weirder zones like this big quarry that's like has all this weird poison,
Yeah,
horrible
it gets wild.
crystals. That gets wild. Um,
Yeah, there's like this big beach area also that you have to teleport to, which is cool, and that's like one of the things that the manual teaches. I think it's okay to probably speak of that.
hmm
Uh, and it's like one of those things like, oh, you could do this kind of from the beginning, so it's one of those you could go there first.
Yeah.
Um,
hmm
and uh, and all of them kind of felt pretty fresh for a game like this. Like they didn't feel like the fire area and
Yes.
the
Yeah.
ice
There's
area
the
and the
ice
forest
area.
area.
Yeah. They
Yeah,
they did
it
feel like they tried to make interesting locales.
yeah.
For sure. And
Um,
it's just like the visual style of it, like it's this isometric, like top down, very stylized in a very
uses the
used way. So
perspective really well.
yeah, a
Um,
lot of perspective. Yeah, used very well, and like to the point
puzzles
where
based on
yeah,
that.
puzzles and like environmental like things hidden in the environment, to where like you will absolutely if I'm probably looking at gameplay of this, you'll see people just like walking into walls or walking
Yep.
awkwardly into corners because sometimes there totally is stuff hidden that well in the game, like tons of stuff like that. Like pretty much every waterfall in this game has a secret
Has
behind it,
something.
and that's
You
like
gotta go there.
that's like a beautiful thing in and of itself, because not a
Yeah.
lot of games that used to be a classic thing in video games and like not as much do it anymore. And
Yeah,
this
and it
game
fits.
has like
Yeah.
literally almost every waterfall I found was like, I want to go try and look behind here. Oh, there's something in here, a chest or some other weird secret that we'll get more into. But there's tons of stuff like that. That's
Yeah.
just so well designed, and such a well designed world that I
And
really
speaking on
liked.
like that part of that design, like obviously a big part is how you explore it.
hmm
And I like the actual play of it. Like I think it feels great. I love like the dodge roll is kind of like a big mechanic of it,
hmm
which isn't normally in like it blends like Dark Souls like very
Yeah,
very slightly into this. Like I
yeah.
know I hate to invoke the name.
Yeah, it's
I
the Dark
try
Souls
not
of
to say
indies.
it.
It's the Dark Souls of Fox games. Games you play as little
Yes.
foxes.
I don't want to be that person.
Yeah.
But like it takes like the concept of like stamina meter functions very similar to that or Monster Hunter or something like that. Like you can't
Right.
attack, you can't roll without stamina. Um and like but your attacks don't use it. So it kind of bounces out to be a little bit more forgiving for being like a top-down game.
hmm
And combat it's locking on, strafing, dodge, using iframes to dodge through attacks, and like getting combos in when you can. And it's like just a really good satisfying 3-hit combo with the sword.
Yeah.
But you also have like a roll attack and stuff like that that you can mix up in there. And it
hmm
has that similar rhythm to a Soulsborne of just like taking it slow. I know you played it on like God mode,
Yeah.
which is a great option. I appreciate that that's there because like there's so much more to this game than just fighting stuff.
Yeah.
And I would
That's was a big thing for me.
if you want to see that stuff, but you don't want to have like a rough time, like just throw that on. I think that's a great
Yeah.
option.
There's like a basically like yeah, you said there's like a it's straight called like no fail mode. You just don't take
Yeah, you just
damage,
can't die.
can't die, and then there's also like infinite stamina as well.
Yeah, which I
I'll
think is
say
also a
like yeah,
good.
because it was one of those things where outside of this game I was also playing Elden Ring at the same time as kind of
Yeah,
starting this game, so it's like I'm already playing kind of two slightly challenging games, and I kind of wanted this game to be a little bit more chill. So I ended up turning that on pretty quickly as I got
yeah,
into it, and admittedly, like I think that also I wouldn't say like didn't hurt. I wouldn't say hurt is the right term, but I think it put my mindset in that different thing of like I just want to kind of explore and have a chiller time instead of like thinking in that deeper meta level of like, oh, looking at these pages, and the pages obviously tell me how to play the game, but then there's tons of secret stuff that like that you don't learn immediately till you get later pages later in the game of like, oh, here's these weird puzzles that are hidden on this page this whole time, and I just didn't have the information to unlock
yeah,
these, so I like wasn't thinking in that way. And again,
yeah.
talking about like I didn't really start getting into that stuff, or thinking about it in that way until I got I got all three of the little basically Triforce pieces, like they're like different little colored gems, and then you go and I guess we're getting into spoilers now a little bit, But basically, you go to save this character you think you're saving, but then she just fucking attacks you, and then
It
like
murks you.
just murks you immediately, and then you come back into the world as this little spirit version of yourself, and then a whole nother section of the game opens up where you have to like venture around this like corrupted, like it's kind of like basically going like again like a Zelda, like a classic Zelda game, going from the normal realm to like a dark realm, and you're in the dark world, and like now it's the world's completely altered in a bunch of different ways, and there's a bunch of different like there's like black like fire everywhere or purple fire everywhere, and you have to kind of like maneuver different ways around it. And the way they completely open that up is by giving you a new ability kind of right when you're in this mode, or you go through like this other like kind of like graveyard area, and you get like a teleport dash that like completely like changes the game in a lot of ways. And I really once I got that and saw there was a lot more going on, I was like, holy crap. Like this is it's really awesome.
It's cool. Like this is a name that I will also invoke, and it's one that's like I think has a certain expectation, and no game has like really lived up to it except for this one for me, and that's Fez. And I don't know if you ever played Fez, Mike, but
I haven't.
This is very, that game has its own language. It has like dialogue that you can translate if you figure that out and stuff like that. And it has these ways that you interact with the world using the control scheme that you don't know until like the game slowly starts revealing that to you, or you figure it out. And they both kind of can coincide organically in a really, really great way.
In another game that's I'll also be a person evoking another video game because I made this joke multiple times to you in our discussion.
That's why I didn't say anything every time you did it.
Was The Witness, which is another puzzle game where you're like, it has like it's sort of what doesn't necessarily have its own well, it has its own language, I guess. You want to get way deep into it, man,
in a meta way.
But it's it's this game where
it's teaching you.
See, exactly. It teaches you these line puzzles that you do, and you connect them, and then it gets crazier and crazier when you go to certain places in the map, and you have to look in a very particular angle, and you realize the puzzles are on the island themselves, and you can move around.
You're interacting with the world.
You're interacting with the world, and this game has that kind of stuff too, which is totally insane to discover. And I literally making those jokes to you, where it's like you get pages. There's these kind of like big gray doors that I saw like the lines on, and like the big gold statue that's way above on the top of this mountain that you get kind of like a little bit deeper into the game and you find it. And I'm just like, those are cool, but I don't know, you don't really think about them when you're kind of early in the game, just kind of doing like the Zelda part. And then, you start getting more of those pages. And that's when you get one page in particular that is like talking about like, it's straight
page 46, baby.
Yeah, it's straight up just kind of tells you like, hey, completing the game more or less. It like puts on the thing and it like gives you a bunch of like these vague images of like things to go do in the world. And there's like these fairies that like teach you things, and there's other stuff. And straight up, there's on those doors, there are they basically look like the puzzles from The Witness, where it's like a little dot and it's a line that you follow. You have to put like a D-pad like directional input in to like solve the puzzle and open the doors. And they kind of teach you that by seeing those doors for the first time, and then as you explore more of the world, you start noticing those patterns are like just like in the world, and you can just go. You find one that's like totally insane in this cave, and it's like spinning. It's like this water reflection on the wall that's like slowly spinning, and so you have to like dissect it while it spins. And there's ones like where it's like there's like little plants and flowers on the ground, and you have to figure it. It's just completely insane. I didn't expect this game to go there.
Yeah, I think like well, I was saying with the movement, like there is like a Metroidvania almost aspect to it of like you mentioned like the blink dash, but like there are other stuff that you get along the way that change how you traverse and stuff that are really cool, and that I really wasn't expecting, and it makes getting around really fun, and kind of like what we mentioned before of like hidden nooks and crannies against walls, and sometimes off screen even like that you can interact with that are really, really cool. And just so you get this sense early on, and this was kind of my trip with it, like, because I remember you found out like that you could upgrade, you like level up
toward the very
way
end
later.
of the game.
And so, I was playing it on the difficult mode. I was definitely challenging. And it has that thing where when you die, you can go pick up the currency you lost.
Pick up your currency, right?
But it's not everything. You just lose like 100 or whatever currency. It's not like
Sure.
all of your stuff. And I remember the first page that you get is like the one that like it's all in this other language, and it shows you like kneeling in front of the save point statues and like opening the menu and having like this things that you can sacrifice. And I was like, what does that mean?
I was gonna say I didn't connect to that at all until, again, it was a thing of like when I was looking at the book early on, going to those Triforce zones. It was more just being like, oh, I have the map in the manual. Let me go just double check this map. And I wasn't as much looking at these other images. But yeah, once I realized that later, I realized that literally once you became a ghost, and then you started like kneeling at the like the little you're going back to the hero's grave, which is like this area where you're kind of like, again, a part of like kind of the end game is like going to these zones and kind of restoring yourself back to, I guess, the living, because you're a little ghost fox. And then I saw like, like each of them are like symbolized by like your health is like this little pink flower and there's all those items. And I was like, hey, I've been getting all those games. What does this even mean? And then I remember just looking like, looking through more pages of the manual, because by that point I did have most of them because I was picking them up. But at that point, that's when I was just like, I saw like the kneeling and then like going to the statues. I was like, oh,
yeah,
of course.
It was there that like I went to a statue and I was like, all right, well, let me see. And I opened the menu and you just see like all these items are now highlighted, and it's like, and then I went over to it and, I leveled up and stuff, and then I go back and destroy what I was fighting. I was like, that was the first time out loud I was like, this game is incredible.
Yeah, right.
And then later on, right, like you see the thing where it's like hold A for 3 seconds, and I was like, that was the second time I was like, this is so. Yep. At that point, and that was relative, that's like I was in the midst of like the first dungeon area, and I was taking my time. I was like really like walking around the whole time. I figured out I was like, because I played the demo that they put out, I think last summer, which was different actually. And it had an instruction manual page in it, but I'd forgotten. And I thought that was like just something for the demo. So then again, the full circle loop back to this. At that point I was like, okay, I have to read and I was like zooming in on every page. I was looking at everything. And then like, as you're picking them up, it is like the mystery is unfurling itself in a really organic way. So like before long, I had my journal up and I was doing stuff like this, and I was writing weird numbers, and I drew different things, and it to like anyone else, and that's why I posted a picture on Twitter with zero context. I was like, to anyone else, this will make
like, what?
What does that mean? Are you crazy? Are you good?
Yeah.
But like when you're in the midst of the game and it's just like unfurling itself, again, the layers are kind of stacking on top of yourself. It is just blowing my mind left and right. And I was definitely like really invested in like the world, and how they were kind of environmentally telling the story. And the way that like you had said, like you find the first like 3 pages of the instruction manual, and it's like the opening of an instruction manual is like, here's this character, and like here's the story, like here's the prologue to the story that you don't know. And then like imagining that as like the reason like the instruction manual becomes metatextual is because if your character had read this before going on their journey, like they wouldn't have done it, right? So it is one of those things that like inserts you into the game in a really, really cool way. And yeah, like it's one of those things like where if you kind of do all the hoops and follow the golden path, you like, I didn't have to fight the final boss, once
you get everything, because it literally is the true ending, I guess, as it were, is like is you literally completing the instruction manual, and you do that by at least the final page I got. Well, actually, the final page technically I got was from one of the fairies.
Yeah.
But there's this basically like one of the last pages you get towards the end is kind of alluding to that image you did in your notebook of like it literally just has this gold. You have this big golden sheet and has a bunch of numbers applied to it, and that like context and that like matches to these different I guess like all the different puzzles, right? Because I immediately
all the pages,
right? It's the codes on the pages,
and then you get the instruction along with it is like follow the golden path, and you're like,
right.
okay, I don't know. I remember getting that, seeing the page, and I'm like, all right, that's for later.
Yeah.
And then like
yeah.
I was like sitting there like looking at something else, and I remember like seeing a number, and I was like, what? And I opened it, and this is like I became fully Charlie Day from like the crazy It's Always Sunny bit of like, all right, and I'm like flipping through the pages like
rapidly, just like
it just gave me like this very physical feeling because the pages like flip as you're going through it, and it really evokes like that feeling of having that manual in front of your face. Maybe you really miss it too. But like going to that and be like, all right, this is page 19, and then flipping to page 19 and seeing like these like a pattern within the page, without saying too much. And then like flipping back and then starting writing it down and connecting the pages, and like then you get this kind of ultimate puzzle that you realize is like the true mission of the game. Yeah, it's that was like truly an incredible moment. It's like something I will remember forever. Like having that realization in the game, like
and connecting that and basically completing the whole kind of thing is completing the actual manual itself. And then, like you said, if once you do that, you get kind of the true ending. You give the manual to the final boss, and then they're flipping through it like, oh, we've been stuck in this weird thing of this. We're stuck in a video game, kind of. I guess is what it's kind of the meta narrative of it. And then you don't fight each other, and then you just get like this kind of sort of happy ending to it. But,
it was such a good way to end it. It like. It is so rare, I think, that games like this, where it is like so metatextual, have like a happy note to go out on. Like Fez, like very similarly is like this, with its own hidden language. And like in that game, you're using the triggers based on Tetris blocks on how you rotate the screen, and doing that in a certain order opens doors and shows secrets and stuff like that. And like the end of that game is like you going on an acid trip, basically. And this one is like just two friends hanging out, and it feels very nice. It's a good nice. Like the way it starts is like this very hopeful adventure, and the way it ends is like a wonderful bookend. Like I think this game is like truly special.
It's really awesome how they blend all that, and like but still have it be like this game you can kind of just like play and like figure out a lot of stuff on your own. Because I said, like that's how kind of I played it. Like I just kind of played it like kind of more like a basic video game.
It's a fun video game. Also,
you can just kind of do that like it's basically a Zelda style game, and you can play through. I would say a solid 60 to 70% of that game, without even really going deep in on that instruction booklet. And then once you have that moment, like you said, because I just ended up having that moment later, but you have that connection.
You can have it at any time. I think
exactly. Yeah, you can kind of have that
part of it
as you get more and more of those pages and start like really looking at those pages and having those kind of aha moments, and like seeing how you can kind of interact with like deeper things in the game. It's really cool. It's really well done. Did you find, and again, this is getting into more spoilery stuff, but did you find all the secret like treasures and figure out what that crazy thing was? That it's like a meta out of game, like
it's an ARG.
Like, it's like an ARG of like the person probably just teasing whatever their next game is, more or less. And that's what at least what people are implying.
Crazy octopus thing.
Yeah, that was bizarre.
Yeah. I went all the way in.
Yep.
I got there. I didn't I looked up what the phonetical, I didn't know that you could make an alphabet with phonetic sounds. So I had a very long, deep internet research hole of learning about the phonetical alphabet and learning how you can translate languages in different ways than just like,
Yeah.
because in Fez, they have a cipher that is like, I don't know if you're familiar with the sentence, the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. It's a
Right.
sentence that carries every letter in the English language in it. So it's like a kind of universal cipher.
Right.
And
Yeah.
there is a location in Fez that literally has a stone tablet on it with a bunch of the Fez writing in it and brown fox jumping over a dog, like physically. And it is like telling you this is this, and like write this down and it'll translate to the language.
Right.
So it is like a much more like one-to-one word to letter cipher, and this one is like not that.
It's not. It's not.
It's not that at all.
Yeah.
And I was almost ready to go all the way and be like, I'll translate the language myself because I was just that into it. And I had all this spoiled for me with Fez, right? And I didn't get the experience of like being able to discover it. I did play The Witness, and I did like look up at this clouds and like be like, and just like my brain exploded. I definitely had that, and I remember that was like such a special moment. Don't
really
listen
cool.
to this if you haven't played the game. Just play the game first.
Yeah, this is what it is. Yeah.
But yeah, I did want to talk about it. So like being able to like it was both the kind of perfect storm of like, this is the kind of video game that I like. It's using a lot of things in video games that I like, and it is also this new thing, which I think is the instruction manual, and just that being so cool and well made, and the things in other games that I've enjoyed of this metatextual, but like executed in a way that I can keep up with, right? Like I genuinely had trouble in those other games, so I didn't understand. And partly because I'm older and partly because of how well it's done in this game, I think like I was just able to really click with it. So it's like full circle. I just love this game, tip to top, like 10 out of 10, truly. For me.
And I think a major thing about it too is, again, going back into the manual stuff, is like I'm thinking about like having a real world video game manual, and like I think the game is almost more effective because it is in game, an in game manual that you are like unlocking pieces of over time. Because you're slow, because like you get some basic information.
You're forced to engage with it,
Yeah, and then exactly. Like I'm trying to think of like there will probably be some like limited run or fan gamer or whatever outlet that kind of does like a physical edition of this game that gives you like an actual real version of the manual, and like that you could totally play it that way, and it would be fun and cool to like have like a real manual of the in-game manual or whatever. But I think like just having that experience of the game and getting those little pieces each time, like, and then being able to unfurl it in different ways of like even if you discover it right away, and that makes you want to go immediately get pages, or if you come kind of back to it later and kind of start getting all of these pages, and you have like a whole collection of pages, and then you start flipping through and realizing what more secrets like the game has. I think that like lends so much to why this is like a cool experience.
Yeah, and like credit where credit's due, like in the game, the animation is tip top, like truly beautiful, absolutely gorgeous game. Runs very well, and like I had zero technical issues while I was playing it. Very polished. Like I'm extremely impressed knowing that this is made by one person. Like obviously. Long wait, but like absolutely the thing I thought at the end was like, this completely worth the wait. Having like been following this game for years. And I like George was the person that introduced this to me, George Cruz of Papa Gen, our good friend. So I texted him after I finished. I'm like, listen, I don't do this ever, but you need to play this game. Like, because he's a big Fez fan. But like the animation and physicality of the manual is really significant. I think it does a lot for me playing the game. Just like I said, like the flipping the pages and like the kind of anxiousness that comes with that. But like each page is 2 pages because it's front and back, right? And like then like one page will be like, you'll get one page and it's like completely unrelated to the other one. Sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. But that front and back, like maybe it's like half a map, and it's like, oh, what is this? Like, where is this going? And they'll often have like a little note or an annotation that says see page like 32 or whatever. And it's like, oh man, what what could possibly be on that page
It's
that
on
explains
32,
this?
yeah.
And then like you get that page and then you flip it to the other side and it's like this totally other thing that sends you like the way that it kind of like leads you down a line of like becoming a crazy conspiracy theorist is like so immaculately well done. I really think so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so well done, and just like there's one of the last pages is straight up just like a memo page, which just like has literally those like weird scribblings on it. When you get it, even for the first time, it's like just has a bunch of scribbles on it, and you're just like, you either by that point you might have some ideas of what it is, but like I know for me that was like when I was still on like kind of figuring out everything and figuring out like the different puzzles and just seeing a bunch of nonsense on a page and just being like, what? It's like, okay, sure. And then like getting more and more pages and then seeing these other things and then connecting the dots to all of that stuff. Super, super well done. I definitely, we work, like you said, we're kind of just, spoiling a little bit of the game, pretty much, the experience a little bit, but I think, it's still worth checking out regardless of like,
it's tough to like critically assess the game without talking about that though,
exactly.
like
yeah.
I'm trying to explain to you why it works, right? Maybe like it's better if you didn't play or if you did before you hear it, but like as like us just critically reviewing the game, like this is what makes this game special.
Yeah.
And
it's the game. Like we have to talk about the game, right?
It is like so unique to it. I'm sure there's a way to talk about it without it, but I want to I want to tell you exactly the moments that I had with the game that like I pivoted multiple times. Like I really liked it, and then like I hit a part where it was like this is getting really hard, and I was thinking about turning on no fail mode, but then I realized like looking at the pages, I realized I could go somewhere else. Like you don't have to do any of the areas in any particular order, which is another cool thing.
Yeah.
Because the grappling hook is a thing that you get separate from all those major areas. And I made sure I got that first. And so I went somewhere else and I just did some stuff and then I leveled up a bunch and then I came back to the boss that I was having trouble with and blew through it. And then like that's when like the dots started connecting with me. Like there were moments where like along the trip that my opinion like really changed. Like I know I said like, oh, this game's incredible, but like I like fell more and more in love as the layers kind of stacked on top of each other. And
same here. It's like I definitely
awesome.
Even without like kind of the difficulty of having to worry about like these bosses with no fail mode, I was having those ups and downs of like that was kind of that first thing of like playing it and seeing how like it can be pretty freaking hard, especially in like the early parts where you don't have those upgrades.
It does not tell you where to go.
It doesn't tell you much anything, and you don't really have a lot of the pages yet. It can be pretty challenging right out the gate, which could be a turn off, I think, for some for sure. But I think it's worth like sticking through it. And again, like you can do what I did and just turn on those modes pretty much right away, and just not have to worry about the difficulty of the combat mainly, and just kind of explore and find all the cool stuff. And I think that still was totally enough for me to make this like have such a cool, interesting experience. And it's it's just so cool to see. Again, it's very evocative of Zelda. And like you mentioned it earlier, like a game that was similar in this in this vein that came out last year was Death's Door, which I liked a whole lot as well. And it's like so cool seeing like these two different takes on this like a decade long like classic Zelda, like 2D top down Zelda formula, and like these are very different experiences.
I have the same thought,
but like are in that formula, but are still feel like a lot of different experiences, and like they're both like so well crafted, and it's so cool to see that this formula like can still have can still like kind of be some of the best games out there.
Yeah, it's great because I had the thought frequently of like there's so much overlap with this game and Death's Door as far as like clear inspiration and what they do with that inspiration, like the kind of Soulsian combat, et cetera, et cetera. But like they're doing two totally different things in like there are lines of congruence that you could probably draw from them of like the way they focus on exploration and discovery and teaching you things. Like obviously is similarity there, but like the execution is so different, and they're both so good.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
this playing this, like, you know, I maybe had the thought of like, wow, Death's Door is not as good as this, but like you know, like I going back to it, it's like they're like both extremely good in like totally different ways.
Yeah.
And they came out so close to each other. And like you said, like Zelda is like an old hat thing at this point, and sometimes you get that eye roll when it's like, here's our game, this is what it looks like.
Yeah.
It's like,
He's a
all
top
right,
down 2D Zelda going to get the small key to get the bigger key to get to this thing, and like
yeah,
you can kind of just tell what it's going to be right away. Where these games like still have a lot of that DNA, but they just
but they just do something with it,
yeah,
you know?
they just incorporate so much other interesting ideas, or like introducing that like Souls like combat, and introducing like different variants of things you like are familiar with, but like are like a new ways to interact with the world. And they both the games just do that. Death's Door and Tunic just do that and so well. And it's just I'm just so happy to see, like, as somebody who's nostalgic about those, of course, those classic Zelda games. You have a freaking poster of a Zelda game on my fucking wall. Like
Yeah, Link Between Worlds.
it's just cool to like freaking have that again, and just be like they can still make those classic games that I'm fond of, but in totally new ways with new ideas and like new modern takes on it. And it's just awesome that they like there's developers doing awesome work like this to do that.
Yeah, totally. It like, as someone who like Link to the Past was my favorite game for so long, like this is a game like that, you know, physically, but conceptually is like a modern take on that. And it's like,
Mhm.
oh, like it is truly the proud like lover of video games to see the medium evolve in this way. Is like, it's just, it feels so fresh to engage with a game like this. And it like, I can't
Mhm.
overstate like the sense of discovery. Like it put such a smile on my face. Like it was so delightful. Like just like actual physical delight. You know, I know it sounds dramatic, but like it is like that is the feeling that I had playing this game.
Mhm.
And like what a wonderful thing to say about any video game. You know, like that this one just hit me so hard, like right in the heart. Like it speaks to it. Yeah, I like I honest to God, I don't have a bad thing to say about Tunic.
Yeah. Yeah.
I I really don't. I like
Mhm.
it's like you know, shout out to Jeff Gersman, who was part of like the thing that turned me on to like what was really going on in Fez. He is playing this and he's been tweeting about it of like, yeah, this is incredible. It's like, as
Yeah.
I know he loves Fez so much, I know the reasons
Yeah.
why. So like this game delivers something like a modern, even more modern take on that in such a great way. So I'm so
Yeah.
happy he's
Yeah.
enjoying it.
I was again Well, I'll end it on this, and like just like because again this I think is a good way to like encapsulate like how well this game hides things, and like but also teaches you a bunch of things. They talked about it on the last bomb, like a more recent bombcast, of literally there's a place you can go and completely customize the look of your character. I had no idea that existed in the entirety of the game. But there's just like a place you can go and you can like change the color of their tunic, change the color of his like fox, and like put other little
I
things on
didn't know
them.
that until this moment, I'll be honest.
I didn't know that either until they started talking about it in the in the bombcast. I was like, "Are you kidding me? That was in this game this whole time. That's so cool." And
I
that's the
think,
kind of game it is. It's just like where we definitely talked about a bunch of aspects of it, but it's still such a game that has so many cool
yeah, you're gonna
layers to
find
it.
stuff that you're just blown away by. I think my new favorite video game trope or mechanic is you being able to do something but you just don't know it yet. And that like
Yeah, and
like
that's like the
the
core of this game.
yes, but like also like that's like the dive attack in Death's Door, right?
Yeah,
And the prey mechanic in this game.
right.
Obviously many more on top of that, but like the fact that you can just hold A and do these things at any time, and it's like, oh, like I love, I don't know why, but like there's something about that because it just, there's like an old schoolness to it.
Yeah,
But each game has like a different way of telling you that you can do that. And I love seeing how developers communicate that information wordlessly. You know,
yeah. They can
it's
just do that.
it's amazing.
But yeah, again, Tunic, super awesome game. definitely worth. Definitely recommend checking it out. I don't think I can say other than like some of like I think like the game can be a little rough in the get go. I think it's still such an amazing experience.
Yeah.
Again, it's right now it's an Xbox exclusive. So if you have Game Pass, you pretty much own the game already.
If you have an Xbox, you probably have
You
Game
probably have
Pass.
Game Pass. That's where I think that's where we both played it. It is on Steam too. That's kind of
Yeah.
where it is at the moment. But I'm sure it'll come to other platforms soon enough. So I definitely, Tunic, such an awesome game, such a cool game, and especially in this time where it's like we're in that like March or February early year like video game, like the rent like things that got pushed back because of a pandemic, but also games that just kind of needed to come out because of this. And there's a lot of big games. We got like Elden Ring and Horizon, and like all these other crazy games that just came out like literally days before we were recording this. And it's so cool to see this game like in some ways like stand above some of those for me personally already like this year.
Yeah, me too.
I'm just like that's how awesome I think Tunic is, and I think people should definitely check it out.
Worth your time.
It's worth your time.
That's always the thing. Like with Game Pass, it's like it's not obviously everything you're not paying for, but like of the like this, and I would say Nobody Saves the World. Like those games are both worth your time, and you're gonna have some time because April's a dry month. Let me tell you. So if you finish Elden Ring and want something a little smaller and a little nicer, just play Tunic. Put it on God mode or no fail mode. It doesn't matter. Just play this game.
Just play it. That's gonna do it for this review discussion, everybody. Thanks so much for listening, or if you're watching us on youtube.com/irrational passions, that's where we are. Thanks for talking with me, Alex.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Can we do a quick little housekeeping here? I want to just a couple of things I want to throw out there.
Let's talk about some stuff we're doing.
I'm sorry, folks at home. You'll have to now listen to the part where we talk about other things. But you
better stay for it.
You better stay for it. If you like this, obviously go listen to Nintendo Land with Mike and myself. Look forward to some Destiny focused content. Helm to Tower. It's on YouTube. I should get links from irrationalpassions.com to that at some point soon.
Okay.
And I also want to shout out IPD&D, which should probably at the time this is coming out, the third episode should be out. It's an actual play Dungeons and Dragons podcast hosted by myself. I have not had a lot of opportunities to shout it out. So please go check that out. I worked very hard on it. Probably way too hard, but I'm really proud of it. So please go give that a listen.
We're doing a lot of stuff, as you can see. We're getting back into the groove of things with making fun stuff. So D&D, check that out. We got more. We'll have more review discussions as well.
Yeah, Elden Ring.
Ring. We'll have some viewpoints as well for Ghostwire Tokyo and probably some other indie games as well. So yes, youtube.com, Irrational Passions is where you can see a lot of that, or irrationalpassions.com, our website, or on podcast services. That's usually where our review discussions are as well.
Yes. The Elden Ring's going to be up on both YouTube and that. So if you can go listen to that as well.
As well as this here. So you can be watching us or listening to us. Nintendo Land also is on YouTube and its own feed on podcast services. So thanks everybody who always is just checking it out.
Yeah.
Regardless, or if you see this for the first time, thanks so much for checking us out.
Yeah. Thanks for listening.
We'll see you next time. Bye.